Hi, in this video, we are going to discuss different sources of error when you follow numerical methods, right? So there are several types of errors that may limit the accuracy of a numerical calculation. Errors can be classified as follows: non-numerical errors and numerical errors. Let's see what non-numerical errors are. So these errors occur basically before we solve the mathematical model. So note that, I repeat that again. These type of errors occur before we solve our mathematical model, right? So we know that we have a real world problem that we want to solve, right? And then we apply the solution back to the real world problem. In that whole process, we have errors that accumulate from a lot of different sources. So let's see what different sources of errors that we have are and where they come from, right? So first one, these errors occur. I want to mention that again. These errors occur before we solve the mathematical model, right? So under non-numerical errors, we can talk about modeling errors. So modeling error comes in different types. So we have blunders, that means human mistakes, and we have formulation errors, and we have data uncertainty, right? So as I said, blunders are human mistakes. For instance, so you forgot a term of the equation, you forgot a term, some kind of term, or you used the wrong equation, right? So whatever you did, whatever you do silly things, right? So those are mistakes. So that will generate errors, right? So so these errors are really problematic and do happen in real world situation. These they're a little hard to analyze, these type of errors. Very difficult to analyze these type of mistakes, these type of errors generated from human mistakes, right? So let's now talk about formulation errors. So we have formulation error where we actually use a model that we know does not represent the reality. So for instance, when you model a real world problem, so you may neglect to include a significant parameter to your model. So this affects your output results, right? These type of errors, uh, yeah, that is called formulation error. So if you forget something, if you yeah, that those type of errors are called formulation errors, right? And the other one, so errors in input data. So the input information could be data coming from some measuring device. For instance, if you want, so suppose you have a road, right? So you want to measure the length of that road. definitely you have to use a vernier caliper or something like that, right? To measure that length of the road, right? So we know that no uh, device is perfect, right? So devices are rarely completely accurate. So therefore it will generate. So when you take the reading, so it has some kind of error, some kind of measurement error or some kind of error. So this will generate some kind of error. So we have, it is very difficult to yep. So therefore these are types of modeling errors that can occur, that come into the problem, right? So yep. Now let's look at the next type error that we have. So it is called numerical errors, right? So we are going to treat numerical errors in three different sections. uh, round of error, truncation errors, and approximation errors, right? So let's talk about round of error, right? So suppose we want to store a number into your computer, right? So when you store a numbers, when you store a real number on your computer, uh, this error occurs, the round of error. For instance, if you consider 1/3 is a real number, so this can be written in this decimal. This can be written in this way. So 0.333. So it has infinitely many decimal places, right? So we know that computer has a finite memory capacity. So when the computer stores this number, the computer uh, chop this number from a certain place. So actually the memory depends on your the hardware you are using. If you have a good or supercomputer, it has a lot of memory, so right. So the memory depends on the hardware you are using, right? So anyway, we have finite, so we have limited memory, right? We have limited, so computer has limited memory. So when you store this type of uh, numbers, a computer chop off from a certain place. So this will generate error, right? This will generate errors, right? So this is called round of error, right? So the truncation error, uh, when we talk about truncation, we are talking about trunking an infinite series. I think you remember how we computed Taylor polynomial and Taylor expansion, and if you truncate that infinite series from a certain point, you get a Taylor polynomial. So that is an approximation to that infinite series. So when you when you cut down that infinite series from a certain place, yeah, it will generate error, right? That error is called truncation error, right? And the last one, approximation error. When you, so for instance, so you have problem, right? Say you have a problem, so you have, so when you compute something, you cannot deal with continuous variable, so you have to discretize that variable, right? So when you discretize the problem, so it will generate errors, so that errors are called approximation error. So later I will explain these things in detail, right? So I want to give a brief introduction about these errors, source of errors, so how those errors occur. occur. So these non-numerical errors occur before you solve the problem, right? So this numerical error occurs. These errors occur when you store your data onto your computer and you run your algorithm. When you run your algorithm, these things happen, right? So truncate your infinite series, the computer truncates your infinite series and computer round of numbers and approximation. These things happens uh, when you solve the problem. These errors occur before you solve your mathematical model, right? All right.